All right, so we're here today. We have to fix an electrical problem. This is my brother Geoff. He's our electrician in Home Rehab Pros. And so he's going to do this work. He's going to step you through what he does. What I would like you to look at is how we're set up to do this. So maybe if we can come in and get a close picture on our tools. Okay, so we've got our electrical tools. Okay, we've got a box. And as you can see, what our problem is here is these wires are hanging loose. So show those wires. So we've got to put those in that metal box that I just showed you. So there's a couple things we have to do for that. Okay, so what Geoff is going to do is identify the circuit that this is on so he can turn that off and work on it safely. So we're going to step through that. And then he's going to show you how he takes this fixture down, installs this metal box, puts those wires in this metal box, covers it over so that it is code compliant and safe. So now let's get started.
Okay, so we're going to go over and take a look at the service box. And this is very important because to be safe, we have to kill the power to the circuit that the light is connected to. Safety is always first when dealing with electricity. Now on this box, I've come through earlier and predetermined some of the issues here. This circuit doesn't appear on what they wrote on the box. So we're going to have to identify that. This is the number 14 as it's listed down. So I'm going to take and we're going to write circuit for light, and we'll mark that basement light. So that's what we're going to do. Mark off blank and put basement light. That way, anytime you would ever have a problem, you know right where to kill the power to that circuit, which also runs a plug that they had installed over on the other side of the room. So that's the one. We're going to kill the power. Now the reason we're doing this is that this is not safe, and really it's illegal. You should never have an open splice in any area of your home for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it can cause a fire. It can cause damage to your home. It can hurt you. So to be safe, by code, we have to put these and enclose them in a box. Now, Amber, if you could come over here and look underneath this light. There's no hole to port through for me to run the connection or the splice into light, where a lot of times it typically is. But they do have holes for a box on top, and that's what the junction box will do. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this light down, we're going to wire through this junction box, and then we'll be able to mount that on top, putting these screws through the holes that are provided. And that will enclose and resolve our problem with the open splice. So I'm going to get started here. Here are the tools that we're using. You should, anytime you have a job electrical, you should have wire strippers, a pair of diagonal cutters, needle nose pliers, screwdriver, a power tester. In fact, we're going to check and make sure that power is off, and we'll run it on the black power cord. If that turned red, and I'll show you that, I'm going to turn this on, and we'll see how that beeps red. That means the power is hot and on. So we're going to turn that back off, check it one more time, and we're all good to go to work on this light safely. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit too about choosing the right wire nuts, because it's important in making any connection electrically that you have the right size to be able to correctly hold those wires together so they don't move. Becomes very important. We'll explain some of that as to why later. But this is good for up to a 10 gauge wire, 3 10 gauge wires, and as low as 2 20 gauge wires. So making sure that the right connector is what you have before you get started. I also have what you call push connectors. They're like insulated bushings that what they do is they hold the wire in place once it's in the junction box. Necessary to have these. You never take an open hole in a metal junction box without an insulator, because the metal can cut the wire, the insulation on the wire. So very important to keep that in mind. And again, always remember that it's safety first. Whether you're a DIYer or someone that's just handy, we always want to make sure that what we do is take the steps that ensure that we don't hurt ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to take this light down and we're going to get started in fixing this situation. So the reason that we don't want open splices, again, in any run on electricity, is because of a fire hazard. So it's very important to make sure that when we put these things back together, even in the box, that we do it correctly, or we cause sparks and always a risk of electrical serious issues. So I'm going to put that there. I'm going to take these off. I'm going to set this down here. Now I'm going to clear the ladder of some of these tools, because the ladder can be your friend in helping you assist, especially with a light like this. It's long and you're trying to balance it in space, really. So we want to make sure that we do as much as we can to lessen the burden of having to do this. So I'm going to move a couple of these tools. Because this is a single wire, I'm going to go right through the top. So I'm going to take my needle nose pliers, and see that pops that open. Then I take the same pliers and I can twist that out. Comes out pretty easily. Then the next thing I'll do is I'll take that insulator and I take it and I put it right in there. It fits in the hole. Once the wire goes in, it expands it and locks it into place. Another thing that we have to make sure that we do before we put this box on is back these screws off. So what we do, and we back them out some so that they fit through the holes in the light properly as we mount it. Okay, I back that out a little bit and that should be good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this wire up, because as that wire is right now, it'd give me a hard time to get in that box. So I'm going to take this out of my way. I'm going to take my razor knife, because this was cut so short, and I'm going to skin this a little bit, the actual insulating Romex cover. And I'm going to very carefully take my razor knife and I'm going to slice it just like so, which allows me to peel it back. And then I'll take my razor knife again and I cut it. And sometimes what I like to do is take a little black tape. Not a lot. You don't want it to be thick. I'm going to take that. I'm going to cut a little piece off with my razor knife. And I'm going to put it over that edge so it allows that to go smoothly into that insulator. So now we're going to take the box and we're going to run it through here. And just a suggestion, because you have a flat side to this wire, if Amber can get close to that, it's flat. In this connector, there is a flat side in the connector. So if you align that, that wire goes right in. Okay, if you're not aligned like that, sometimes it'll give you a hard time. And again, you want to make this as easy for yourself as possible. So we're good there. And what we're going to do is, now we're going to hook up this light. So we're going to take 3 connectors because we have 3 wires. You have a hot, a neutral, and a ground. The black should always be your hot. So you want black to black. So like I said, the ladder can be your friend. So what I'm going to do, because I have this piece of wood between the floor joists, I'm going to take it, I'm going to set this right here while I connect. Pretty handy. Otherwise you're dealing with it in space, like I said, and it can be difficult to do. So I'm going to take and I'm going to connect the hot to the hot. Now, like I said, when we put these on, what's very important is we have to realize that electricity is energy, and you've heard an electrical current. That means that electricity moves. And if you don't put the wire nut on correctly and it's too loose, those wires will actually move and it can cause a spark. And once it starts doing that, it will start to loosen up on its own. And I've even seen these wire nuts melted in a box because of loose wires. So tightening this up appropriately is very important. Now that's nice and tight. That's not going to go anywhere. So we always want to double check that. Sometimes it's even okay to go a little overboard with it. That way you're certain that wire nut is on correctly. So we're going to now hook up the neutral. Okay, nice and tight. And just as important is the ground. We need that ground wire. Okay, so we're going to move that, and then we're going to hook up this ground. There we go. Again, nice and tight. So this is kind of nice here. So now this gives me the opportunity to check if I've got this hooked up. So I'm going to go over, I'm going to turn on that breaker, and I got light. So we're good. Now I can take that box and I can mount it to the top of this light. I'm going to put the wires in. Make sure they're tucked up in there. There we go. And as we put this up, I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to take, and I've got to gently tuck these up in to that box. And now as you can see, I'm going to take these screws and put them through the holes. And if we look underneath, you'll see how they aligned. Okay, so now that I have that, I'm going to take my Phillips screwdriver, I'm going to tighten this one, and then I'm going to get that other screw back in there. There we go. Turn a little bit. Tighten that up. Okay. So now we can let that hang and you can see how that works. So now that box is safely on there. It's secure and the wires are concealed as they should be. Now we're going to rehang the light. Okay, so now we're going to put this light back up. So I'm going to align the hole for the screw with the wood that we had it secured in, and I'm going to put that up. I'll take my other screw. I'm going to straighten it up here. Looks good enough. And then we're going to put this in. Okay, let's test the light again, make sure it works. We'll turn that breaker back on and we have our light.